Hello, everyone. This is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love, and thank you for being again in Soul Talk. And today we have a very special invite that I have the honor to have in Soul Talk. This is Dr. Joe Delaney, that I have the pleasure to meet him in person in Houston about a year and 4 months ago. Dr. Joe, thank you so much, first of all, for being in Soul Talk. I really appreciate that you accepted my invitation.
My pleasure, and lovely to see you again.
Thank you. Look, let me just tell you a little bit about a little bit about Dr. Joe, but he's going to be explaining us more about himself. Dr. Joe Delaney is a consultant in energy medicine. Doesn't sound so cool, but let's hear a little bit more about what he is and what he means with this amazing title. Dr. Joe, can you explain us a little bit more about how do you got here precisely?
Well, I got here after years and years of being very stressed and very anxious and often depressed. And I took to alcohol in order to try and help me with that. And then after years and years and years of more pressure, the alcohol got hold of me and I became addicted to it. And in that process, I lost everything. I lost my job. I lost my wife and children. I lost my liberty. I even lost my home and I ended up homeless because I couldn't stop drinking, Monica. And what happened was I got so fed up with myself at the end that I made several attempts to kill myself, because I was hurting so many people. I didn't understand what was going wrong with me because I've got quite a few qualifications, so I can think okay, but it wasn't really to do with me thinking. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. And so my work now is really about emotions, and E stands for energy, and motion stands for movement. So to me, if you can't handle your emotions, then you are moved by forces other than you want to be moved by, really. And so I've come to understand. So in the last time I tried to take myself, and they were serious attempts because I wanted to be off the planet, because I just didn't know what was going wrong with me, you know. And in the process, what happened to me on the last attempt, well, I hope I hope it's the last attempt, right? Something happened to me. I got this feeling of peace. It was almost like the peace that passeth all understanding descended on me. And I got a really, really clear view of how everything worked. It was almost like, and I even got a picture of a sort of algorithm, like a mathematical formula. That was how the world was constructed. That's all I can remember. And I got a real feeling then, Monica, of something almost said to me, Joe, you actually signed up for this, right? You had to go through this process so that you can understand the depth that people go through when they're suffering from all these things. So what we're going to do, and when I say what we're going to do, I didn't know what this thing was that was talking to me or guiding me, but I got the strong impression was we are going to show you now, one step at a time and one breath at a time, how to conduct yourself through life and how to be successful and how to help other people. So that happened, Monica, and I transformed on that day. I stopped drinking completely. So in 2 weeks' time, it will be 33 years since I've had a drink of alcohol or any other mind-altering substance. So I've been living an authentic life, a natural life, and I've just been working from my intuition and not my head, really. So just to say, I woke up one morning and this voice, it's not like a voice. It's like a very strong train of thought which guides me. And it said to me, you've got to go and do a PhD on this now, a doctorate. And I said, well, that's all very nice, but you'll have to help me. Anyway, cut a long story short, I did a PhD in medicine and it took me 7 years to do, but it was all about really how the heart is connected to the brain, is connected to the mind. So it's really body, mind, soul, spirit. And before that, I was just a simple scientist. All this spiritual stuff didn't mean anything to me. But then, as we all know, people who go through these spiritual awakenings, I started to go more with how I felt rather than how I thought things should be. So I don't know whether that's explained anything, but and that's what I do every morning. I put my hand on my heart and I almost tap on my heart and I just say, "Dear heart, please show me what you would have me do today." And then I sort of listen in then and try and go with the guidance and how this spirit moves me. And by the way, I'm not a religious person at all. I'm still a scientist. And I let go of all religion. So I just work in a scientific way now with my feelings. Has that made any sense at all?
It do make sense for me and hopefully for our viewers too. Yeah, the thing is, there's been a division since probably since Galileo from the church from to the science. And to this day, we have that division, in fact, with the people that the ones that they wanted to associate science and spirituality, because religion it is very different than spirituality. Religion, there are thousands of religions in the world, and they're very, very limiting. And spirituality, it is our inner connection with source or universe, whatever you want to call it, or our inner self. Let's put it like that. And you went in there as a scientist in a way, and you put it together, both of them. And that's something that I will love to talk about more with you because you're a doctor and you're a scientist because you have worked for 40 years, something that I was seeing in your bio, in as a doctor and a specialist in this, and a specialist in integrative health practice, and you put them together in a way, in a unique way, and that I would like to we dive in a little bit more in that.
No,
You,
certainly. I don't disregard anything at all that will help an individual. So I'm not against medicine. I'm only against medicine when it's used at the wrong time for the wrong condition in the wrong amount, because I do think there are some fantastic medicines there that do help people. But I think in one way we overprescribe medicines when there's a lot of natural things that could be tried first and foremost. The thing that I'm supposedly a specialist in is something called mindful breathing. And what it led me to was that our breathing is intimately and intricately connected with the way our heart works. So the way we breathe actually determines the way our heart works. And the way our heart works determines the way our brain works. So most of the time, people are in stress. So when they're in stress, they're rapidly breathing, they're very tight chested, their heart rate's up, their blood pressure goes up, and they think on the defensive all the time. However, the stuff that I teach people is that they can come out of this defensive thinking if they slow their breath down and breathe at round about 6 breaths per minute. And they breathe in the light and then they breathe out all the rubbish that's inside them just to clear space so that the heart can open and so they can be fed with intuition. Because, like you said before, I think there's an innate intelligence. We're born with an innate intelligence in us, but for various reasons, the world in which we live in, it clutters that innate intelligence and it misdirects us away from who we truly are. So we've got this essential part of us that's almost being imprisoned by the way that society wants us to act. And I think comes a time in somebody's life where you start to think, hang on a second, something's not right here. Right. And that's when I think that the soul is knocking on the door to say, hang on a second, there's a better way to live here. Start listening to the information that I'm feeding you rather than listening to all the external experts. And Monica, since I started to do that and sort of express myself more fully, I've outgrown fear. I was a very anxious and nervous person. I was a really big people pleaser. I would do anything to make people like me, even if it meant going against what I believed. I would I would look at your face, and if I thought I'd upset you, I'd change myself in order to please you. So I was always trying to please others, right? And in the end, I've come to understand that unless I put my health and well-being first and foremost, then everything else is just a waste of time. So more than anything else, to connect to what you asked me, I think what I've done is I spend a lot of time on the science of the heart, but the spirituality bit is actually to breathe in a certain way that allows the heart to open so we can listen more to our intuition and allow that to guide us. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense because we tend to breathe. Everybody breathes, or else we would not be alive.
Yeah,
But consciously, we don't do it. And if you do it at least for 5 seconds, the conscious breathing, it changes inside. The monkey mind, it disappears completely
of course.
because you clear your logical mind. And the logical mind is where all the programs are. And that's what it detects us, how we live and how we react to different situations. And the majority of the human beings, we have fears, and fears for different things, different situations. And that's what comes a lot of our limitations, including the people pleasing part. They're not going to accept us, they're not going to love me, they're not going to like me, and so forth. And that's when we change ourselves for pleasing others, for that search of the internal search that we have, every single human being, that we want to be loved and accepted.
Of course. I agree entirely. And I think you get to a point, and I think humanity is going through a great shift in consciousness at the moment. I mean, I study a lot of yoga now, and yoga is not just about exercises. Yoga just means the union. And basically, what union is actually to get balance between the left and the right sides of our brain. If we don't have any balance, we're always fighting with one another. You know, the left side's got ideas, the right side, and so there's always an imbalance. Mindful breathing and using heart-centered approaches, what happens is if we focus on the feeling at the level of the heart and we keep practicing that breathing, eventually these two start to work together. So the masculine and the feminine start to go back. You know, it's almost like a divine wedding and reunion. It's a reunion of our hemispheres, but it's guided by an open and flowing heart. So that's become the most important thing to me now. Is my heart open and is my heart flowing with joy? Right. Because if it isn't, then the first thing I need to do is step back, go into the breathing, allow my heart to open again, and I ask my intuition, why was I feeling nervous there? And then I'll get an answer, take an action, clear the channel, carry on with my life. Now, Monica, I didn't have a clue about this because the doctors, because I was in the profession, they would send me to psychiatrists. They'd send me to psychologists. I'm not against these people because everybody's got a function, but they would try and give me new ways to think. And this is when I thought of a drink, they said, don't think of a drink, think of a porcupine or something like that, you know. And so I'd think of a drink, think of a porcupine, and think, nah, that's not going to work. So what I'm trying to say is the power of thinking wasn't powerful enough. I had to go and find a power that was stronger than my fear. And that power, Monica, as we know, is in there. And I think that every human being is almost being guided now to get out of their heads and back into their hearts. I think it's all part of a great big ascension process that everybody's going through.
But right now, we have in Pasadena the Heart Institute. And in the Heart Institute, precisely, they discovered that the first thought that we have, it doesn't come from our brain, it comes from our heart. So that means that we feel first. We have first our emotions, and then it goes to our thought about that. And something that I have discovered, well, this changed my life when I became the observer of my emotions and my thoughts. And because that's when I realized, like, oh, I can control this. If I can observe them without the judgment, then I can control them. And that's what it was, a mind shifting, many times, because the anxiety comes from our thoughts, the depression comes from our thoughts, and all this illness, in fact, that we provoke ourselves, it comes from our thoughts.
Yep.
So if we can control them, so we can get back the like I used to have lupus, RA, fibromyalgia, and I try also to kill myself a bunch of times too. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in the moment I started learning to become the observer through breathing, because you have to get out of the logical mind. Through breathing, that's what is really bringing the change on me. And I'm not gonna say that we never go sad, because I bet you we're humans,
Of course.
but we can control our thoughts and emotions. And breathing, it is a wonderful technique, just conscience, because we do it either way.
I agree. And I think apparently in Buddhism, Buddha was asked once, what's the quickest way to achieve peace of mind? And his answer was, just become aware of your breathing. And that's it, really. Because, I mean, you can breathe slowly, but you can still be angry, right? But if you become aware of your breathing and you change the quality of the breathing to one of a positive emotion or a caring feeling. So this is not just about breathing at a certain pace. It's also about tapping into a caring and compassionate emotion. And what science is, and this is what I do for a living, science has shown now that when we're in this coherent breathing, what actually happens is we produce all sorts of chemicals that are the precursors for the growth of new nerve pathways in our brain. So as we breathe out the positive emotion, it's actually creating positive nerve channels in our brain. And that over time kicks out all the negative stuff. And it really rewires our brain in a more positive way. And as you say, nobody's got this cracked. We've always got something to learn, you know. And the way I know I've got something to learn now is when I get a grip and I think, you know, and most of the time I've got no idea what's caused it. But rather than be reacting and going on it, what I do now is, like you do, I go into mindful breathing. It gives me space then to see me thinking, to see me actions, and to see the behavior that I was just about to pounce into. And then most of the time I think, oh, right, I see what it is. I've said yes to a person there when I should have really said no because I wasn't being honest with myself. And then what's the answer? Go back and say to them, I'm sorry, I've made a mistake. I'm sorry, I can't do what I said I'd do. Now, the old Joe wouldn't have done that. I would have gone on and been disrespectful to myself, really. And I don't do that anymore, Monica. If I make a mistake, I'll own up to it straight away, you know, and then I'll just say, I'm sorry about that, but I've had a rethink and I'm awfully sorry I can't do what you've asked me to do, you know. And so more than anything else to me, this is about total rigorous honesty with ourselves. And sometimes we can't get rigorously honest with ourselves unless we talk it through with another person. Because there's still something in me that wants to duck and dive and dodge and weave, because that's how I used to live my life all the time. That's still there. It's always on my shoulder, knocking to say, can I come back in? You know. So I think talking to a person like you and being honest and open, that opens the channel even more, gives us more power, makes us more fearless, and we live a better quality of life by being honest, really, I think.
And something that I notice about in honoring ourselves, it is about the coherence. We cannot have coherence. We say we're going to do something, and at the same time, but we act very different. About that, we are not even honoring ourselves. And that's where we can get stuck, because we are like, okay, I'm not feeling honest to be with myself, because I say one thing and I do something very different. Then something that I learned that one with when I was in different ceremonies with different shamans, but mainly with the Chactos. They told me always, be careful with the double tongue people. And at the beginning, I was like, what do you mean? But finally, I came to understand what they were meaning, and they were meaning about the coherence. So someone it is not coherent with what they say and they act, they're not being coherent. So how do you can trust even someone like that? And that also apply for ourselves.
Of course.
If we're not doing it, because something that I learned since very early age, my dad was His word of honor, it was everything. So I learned with my dad that the word of honor, you have to keep it until, even if you did a mistake, you have to keep it. But that can go actually to hurt ourselves if we're not coherent with our own being and honoring ourselves. So breathing can help a lot on that, because before you even give your word of honor, you're gonna think before you give it.
Yeah, and I agree entirely. And I still go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I learned a lot of this stuff to get back in touch with my heart. I went through what's called the program of recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous, and people think that that's just about giving up drinking. Alcoholics Anonymous, for people who don't know, is very little to do with drinking. It's about becoming honest, right? And it's all about integrity. And it means, like you say, you have to act on what comes out of your mouth. So whatever you say out of your mouth, make sure that your legs are doing the same thing, really. And then that's coherence. But then over the years, you can become more honest then in your coherence then. So AA has taught me a lot. It still does. I still go to AA meetings, and people say to me, well, you haven't had a drink now for 33 years. Surely you're cured. And I've seen people after 25 and 30 years pick a drink up again and kill themselves within 6 months. So you see, in a way, I've got this sword of Damocles hanging over me, and I have to almost keep in line with my heart. Otherwise, I put myself in danger of becoming emotionally disturbed. And in that emotional disturbance, I may forget what it's all about and pick a drink up, you see. And what they say is there's no mental defense against you know, that drink if you're emotionally disturbed. It's a bit like people acting in rage. They can't remember what they've done. Well, I have to be very careful now of when I'm coming out of emotional balance. And in a way, it's part of my training, Monica, and I'm getting better and better about it all the time. But I'm still not perfect. But, hey, like you said, we're only humans after all, really.
Something that I always have this question, and maybe you're the best one to ask this question. In Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe in a lot of programmation, and they have, okay, the first thing is you have to say you're alcoholic, and but that also creates a program inside of us, because I used to drink a lot. When I was 21, I was alcoholic, and when I realized what I was doing, that I finished a huge bottle by myself and I was walking like nothing happened. That's when I realized, like, oh, I have a problem. Like, this is not normal. And I come from a family, my dad was alcoholic, a functional alcoholic. So it's like, oh, I look like my dad. And this is, I don't like this. So how I did it, I don't went to alcoholic because I was living in Mexico then. I don't went there. I just punished myself for a few weeks, that not get out in my room, just doing the inner work in there that I did not knew then that I was doing inner work. And when I came out, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna drink. And I did not drink for 6 months or something like that. Then later on, okay, I give permission myself to drink, have one drink. And I can be in a party or whatever, one drink. I'm not gonna have the second one. And there was no need to have the second one, or later on I can go and drink, okay, I can have one or two and that's it. But I did not put the program that I was alcoholic in myself. And something that I see and observe a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous, the persons that become the ghost there, they have the program, I'm alcoholic, so if I have one drink, I go down again the rabbit hole, because they have the programs that I am alcoholic in there. So how it can help and not help, actually, because now I don't have the need to have an alcohol drink in months. Maybe I can go in a reunion and I can have some wines or alcohol, whatever it is, but I don't give myself permission to get drunk.
Very
That's
interesting you say this because initially, I think that you have to develop a new program, which is a positive habit, because I think there's positive habits with your programs, right? But I think that's the initial stages, because some people say, my name's Joe and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Okay. And what that means to me is that there's a physical thing and there's a psychological thing or a spiritual thing that's involved. And what we do is I'm recovered from the alcohol side of things, but I'm still recovering my soul's purpose one day at a time. So there's that one. And also, there's a thing that says that alcoholics, it's like a physical manifestation, really. So if you have a strawberry allergy, right, and you take a strawberry, it's likely that you'll get a massive hypersensitivity reaction and it might even kill you. So you'd be a bit daft trying the experiment to see whether it's going to work this time. Or if you have a peanut allergy. Monica, all I need to know is that I tried for 9 years in Alcoholics Anonymous to regulate my drinking. And I would promise all the people around me, I'm only going to have 2 tonight. And I really meant it. But it's almost like as soon as I took a drink, something changed inside me and it overpowered me every time. I don't need to go and do that experiment anymore. I don't need to drink. I lead a clean life, you know. And so I can see where you're coming from. But I think in the end, I went into Alcoholics Anonymous to stop drinking, but I found God. And when I say God, I mean that connection back to my intuition and my spiritual self. So I don't know whether that's helped you, but different people have different opinions. But I know that if you are a real alcoholic like me, there's no psychological trick that you can use, like cognitive behavioral therapy, that will stop you taking a drink again. And I'm almost like consigned to a life where I've got to lead a spiritual life. Otherwise, I always put myself back in danger of drinking again. I don't know whether that's helped at all, but that's the way I see things.
No, then I everybody's different.
Of
Everybody
course, of course.
is different. Like things that I have done to myself, I cannot even tell my clients, you try that one. Like, I was allergic to tomato one day from the other. I became allergic to tomato, and I realized as Mexican, we cook everything with tomato.
Of course.
And I love Italian food, and there's a lot of tomato too. So what I did, I went for an allergologist, and we tried the treatment, and it was not working, and I could not eat tomato because I get with sores and everything bad. And I said, I have to stop being allergic to tomato because I love tomato. I started eating tomato myself. And of course, I became like a monster and so forth. And again, let's eat more tomato. That's why I cannot recommend this to everybody because I have done it to me only. And like I work, that doesn't mean that it works for everybody. Someone might die eating tomato, you know. It's like if I could die in that time eating tomato. And I was very lucky that I didn't die eating tomato. But now I'm not allergic to tomato anymore.
Yeah,
But that doesn't mean that that works for everybody. And I would not recommend any of my clients like do what I did because they might die
of course.
with that. So that doesn't work like that. So the thing with the alcohol, how it worked for me, that doesn't mean it works for everybody. So I'm not gonna, for the ones that are listening, don't follow me.
I think that the step one of AA is I admitted I was powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable. And what I've come to realize is that my life was already unmanageable because of my sensitivity, because I was born, like yourself, a highly sensitive person, right? And so I could pick up other people's emotions and energies, right? But I couldn't handle it, you see. So the problem was, it was the way I was processing information that's been the problem all my life because of my highly sensitive nature. So what I did was I blamed everything outside of myself for becoming a victim. And I needed you to change. I became a massive control freak. If you hadn't looked at me like this, I wouldn't be feeling like this now. And I got a sponsor in AA and he said, you're a selfish person because you're blaming everybody else. But the problem is, and he said to me, go over there and look in that mirror, he said, because that's what the problem is. And I hated this fella. And he said, Joe, it's the way you're processing information. As soon as you point the finger out like that, he said, you can see there's a V shape there. That stands for victim. So unless you start to be able to regulate your emotional reactions, you're always going to be a victim to life and its circumstances. And this is what he said. Isn't it true, Joe, that you only ever get emotionally disturbed when some people, place, or thing isn't going the way that you think it should? And I said, yeah. And he said, that's called playing God, right? And once I started to see all this, he said, why don't you just let everybody get on with their lives and you go and find something that you enjoy and go and find the real quality of your life without blaming everybody else and interfering in everybody else's life, right? And I had to stop completely, but it's a freedom. Everybody, in my view, well, as adults, everyone's personally responsible for the way that they choose and the consequences of those choices. That's real freedom, as far as I'm concerned.
How we can explain the spirituality with the science at the same time, going back to that point. Because yes, we can say, okay, scientifically breathing, it can change our own emotions and our own state of mind, wherever where we are. But it is still not proven for many doctors. It's still not proven for the science, the same science academies, that about how important it is, the breathing part that connects us to our source energy, or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. But it connects us to our innate. They have not put enough the importance of the innate in ourselves, how we can change that, or how you can, you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I work, I'm responsible for tutoring at the moment 16 medical doctors who are consultants in their field, right? And I actually get them in. I put them on the heart rate variability machine, and then I give them a little sort of sum to do, like I say, as quickly as possible now, and take this, don't do anything else, just make sure that you do this properly. I want you, when I count three, I want you to count back from 300 in 17s as quick as you can. And I said, and after 1 minute, give me the answer, right? And so they're trying to do this. You can see their brains are racked and their heart's doing that like that. And then I say, okay, and now all I want you to do is breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And what happens, Monica, is their heart trace goes like that then, smoothly. So within about 30 seconds, I've shown them that stress causes their heart to go into turmoil. Their blood pressure goes up, their muscles tighten, they get all tense, they feel terrible. And then I show them, just watch my finger and breathe in as I do that. And within 30 seconds, the way their heart changes, their EEG changes, it changes their brain waves, right? And I'll say, that's probably what do you think about? And they all of them go, and these are cardiac physicians who open people up and do heart transplants and everything else. And they said, Joe, we never realized, right? And so lots of them now come to me with Tai Chi. They go to yoga classes. They're all becoming very calm and cool and collected. And the message is going out slowly but surely, you know. So that's how I'm doing it, Monica. And I do talks to lots of people and I show them the same thing up on stage. I do the same thing. I'll get somebody who thinks they're really clever and who thinks they're really calm. And then I'll give them the same mathematical thing to do. And it goes, and everyone starts laughing. Well, they can't stand that either. So their blood pressure goes even higher. And then I'll say, breathe in, breathe out. And the thing about the breathing is the 6 breaths per minute is the gateway to open the heart further. But then when you get more specialist at it, you can do things like alternate nostril breathing. You can do more rapid breathing. So yoga has got 18 different types of yogic breathing that impact upon the way the brain works in different ways. There's so many different things here. It's also linked to the theory of multiple intelligences. So people start thinking in a different way. They think, oh my God, I didn't realize I knew how to do that. So what happens is all these energy centers in the brain start to open just because we've become aware of our breathing.
And more because we're bringing ourselves back, our conscience to our body.
Exactly.
It's a game changer in that moment. People do not understand that not because you're walking and moving around that you are in your body. we tend to get out of our body. Our conscious is somewhere else, and your body is somewhere else. And breathing will bring it back to the present moment.
I couldn't agree more. And what I've realized now is that our brain, right, our heart is connected to our brain, which is connected to the 12 cranial nerves. So the 12 cranial nerves each represent a different frequency that is actually linked to a different skill or intelligence. So this is really about human potential. See, I've got a big thing going up my spine here now as I'm talking about this. So this is about restoring our full spectrum humanity. And I like it's our consciousness is expanding. But what I like as well, Monica, and I get shown, is our conscientiousness is increasing as well. So people are becoming automatically more kind, more considerate, more compassionate. It's like there's a great big wave of cleansing coming across the planet now that helps people to face themselves, own up to themselves, and start to behave in a completely different way. That sounds like a big religious thing, but I see it more like what they call quantum consciousness now. So I can see this in terms of quantum science now, and that's what I love more than anything else, is that different frequencies cause different skills and intelligences to express themselves. What do you think about that then?
It is, there's a Hawks, I forgot the name of this author, that he talks about the different levels of conscience, like from the fear and so forth, that have different levels of conscience. Fear is one of the lowest ones. Love is one of the top ones.
Yeah.
Hawks, I forgot, I have read
Oh,
books, but well, that yes, breathing would change our levels of conscience, and we will get out of fear if we actually to breathing. We can do that, and not necessarily because we're in the level of the anger consciousness. We cannot get out of there. Breathing or fear, whatever it is, jealousy, envy, competition, whatever it is, that those are the lower levels. That's when the people are not breathing completely. That's when we're in those levels, and that's where it
well,
gets stuck.
no, no, I agree entirely. And it sounds so simple, yet if you try and hold your breath for as long as you can, sooner or later something automatic will take over that will force you to breathe. And that's because, Monica, I'll just do a bit of science here. The heart is regulated by two nervous systems, if you like. One's a brake and one's an accelerator. Okay. However, if we take those wires off and we just leave the heart to beat by itself, it actually beats at about 115 beats a minute by itself because it's got its own internal pacemaker. However, when we put those two wires back on, what actually happens is the heart rate comes down from 115 to 70 beats a minute. That means there's a brake on all the time. And what actually happens is in fear, sometimes the brake goes on even harder and we can't take the actions that we'd want to. So our mind may be saying one thing, but fear is keeping us suppressed and repressed. When we do this coherent breathing, it almost starts to level out then, and you get a feeling of freedom that starts to express itself. That's the start of the new journey, if you like. And religious people might call that being born again. It's almost like you get another chance of life, but working from your heart rather than from your head. And what I'm trying to do, Monica, is I'm trying to bring in the science of what's called the autonomic nervous system and link it to the Eastern philosophy of what they call the seven chakras as well. And I've been able to link up the autonomic nervous system, the chakras, and also the seven primary organs of the body. So I'm being shown, if you like, by my intuition, how everything's connected. And what I'm trying to do is leading with science. I'm trying to bring in these new discoveries and bring it into medicine. And it seems to be working slowly but surely.
This is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love. I would like to just announce that I'm going to be teaching a class of Akashic Records. But it's not only the Earth Akashic Records, we're going to be also doing Galactic Akashic Records, because we don't only start in planet Earth for the starseed. We also have connections to planets. The same issues that I had when I was in the Pleiades or in Sirius, some of them I still repeat in this time. Learn different techniques from the galactic heal. You're interested for a whole comprehension, how to clear, how to clean, how to activate from the perspective also of the galactics. And you're not gonna be only learning how to do readings to your clients, you're gonna do way much more. The program is gonna start on April 22nd. It's gonna have recordings. We're gonna get together once a week. And in the Akashic, they have different rooms in there. They're from healing, they're courts, they're this, there are many things in there that is known only a library of all the information from past lives, present life, and future lives. It's called Galactic Akashic, a program for 24 weeks. Something that I just discovered that I am not totally understanding, but I wanted to learn more about that each one of our chakras, they need different kinds of breathing.
That's right.
So that's something that I just discovered, that one. Can you explain it a little bit more?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so if you look at the chakras, they describe them in different colors. The bottom chakra, called the root chakra, that's the one that's rooted through our legs to Mother Earth. Okay, energetically, not physically, but energetically. The color associated with that is red. So they use the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That's because those colors are different, because the frequency of the color is changing. So it's getting quicker as they go up the frequencies, but also it's associated with different sounds as well. The root chakra is associated with bass sounds, and then we start increasing then in tone. And so it becomes higher and higher and higher. So there's both sound and color. Okay. So your question again was to do with, I'm sorry, what was your question again?
With the breathing that they
Oh
need
yeah.
chakras.
So the breathing associated with the root chakra is slow and deep breathing and grounding into the earth, right? And as we go further, we can increase the breathing frequency, right? Until we get to the top here, which is really, it's called shining skull breathing, it's called. And it's very rapid and it's very focused and it's very intense, right? However, some people get locked into one of them because it gives them a certain feeling that they like. So they almost get addicted to do one thing. But really, we need to be guided by our intuition to use the breathing frequency that corresponds to the action that we need to take in that particular moment of our actions. So you learn this through intuition and through feeling, And the other thing is, different frequencies have different feelings associated with them as well. You know, it's fascinating. We're only ever scratching the surface here,
Yes.
And I'm sure that with your art as well, because I mean I remember your art in that big porter cabin there in Texas, and your art locked up overnight and stuff like that. I remember seeing that, right? And sure, I would imagine that your intuitive artistry really is that how it works, and how do you know which to pick a color because it feels like the correct thing to do? And I think that's what inspires us, because inspire means to breathe in. That's how we get inspiration, by breathing in. And we express it by breathing out, and maybe through the brush. I don't know whether that's made any sense, but that's how I see things.
No, it is in a way. It is through breathing. It depends on, we're going to be putting it in red, or we're going to put it blue, or we're going to put it green, whatever it is. And it is totally intuitive. Even if many artists don't want to agree with that, we're channelers. I believe every single artist, it is a channeler. It doesn't matter if they're a writer, a musician, or whatever they, or painter, whatever they are. We're channeling that energy. And yes, we have to be relaxed. I have not met any artist that says, oh, when I am very angry, I'm going to be doing painting or doing sculpture, or going to be doing something like that, because it doesn't have the tonality that they want because of the anger. So we have to be in a way kind of relaxed, meditative, so we can get that channeling messages or channeling emotions or whatever way it is, so we can actually heal ourselves. Because at the end, it is healing ourselves. And yes, it helps other people when it's like, oh, that painting relaxed me. That was the end result of the channeling process.
I agree. And I think I didn't know anything about channeling. I didn't know anything about all this. I'm learning from the inside out, really. And I tend not to read anything now, right? I tend to get information that comes in and emerges from inside myself. And then I'll read something that confirms it. So I don't read for information anymore. I sort of read for confirmation, or I'll have a talk with you, and that will resonate and that will cement it in place for me to move on to the next stage of my understanding. I didn't have a clue. I'm so glad. I mean, I feel so enthusiastic about the way things are moving forward. I can really feel a positive undercurrent. I know that the world seems mad at the moment, but I think that it has to disintegrate until all its component parts are back again, so that we can put them back together again in a different way now, from the heart rather than from the head. And so, I mean, yoga says this. Yoga says that we're going through a time of great destruction. It's called the Kali Yuga. So the goddess Kali, she's the destroyer, but she also making space for new seeds to be planted as well. So I love Indian philosophy, about 6,000 years of age, because it makes sense exactly with what's going on now. So I feel that we've probably reached the depth of where we're going to, or we're just about on the end of it. But there's a lot of people now who are waking up and saying, hang on a second, this isn't right. We've got to start acting in a completely different way now. I
I,
remember, did you not have some pictures and paintings of Our Lady?
yes, Tonantzin.
Okay, you see, look, as soon as I mention that now, I get a big zhoosh up my spine, right? And it's almost like something here going, well done, son, well done. Because all my life, and as I say, I'm not a religious person anymore, but this means a lot to me, this. I feel that I've been in the service of the divine feminine all my life, right? Because I had a vision when I was about 6 or 7 years of age of this most beautiful, beautiful woman. And the feeling that came up with it, right, was just, and I've always been inclined towards that feminine energy, really. And I think that that's still helping me. Um, I don't know why I've said that, but I have a very strong connection with Our Lady, with Mother Mary, but more than anything else, Mary Magdalene. I feel that I get guided by the consciousness, if you like, that's Mary Magdalene, right? And I feel very comfortable with that. And Monica, these are things that I did not have a clue about at all. And now I sort of get a comforting feeling that I'm on the right path. I'm behaving myself reasonably well. And I'm doing the right thing. So, I just thought I'd mention that.
No, I do agree with that. Tonantzin is being one of my biggest guidance. Um, I grew up Catholic. And the Tonantzin, for some of the viewers, is the Virgin of Guadalupe for the Catholics. She did not present herself like that. She talking now, what she did not present. I am Guadalupe at all. But she's the one that demonstrated me my innate once she appeared with me. And she's the one that demonstrated me that we are all one. She's the one that demonstrated me the inner love and the compassion. That first I have to have it for me so I can project it outside. And that's something going back a little bit what you were saying. That's what I believe that right now the world in this big transformation that we're going, it is pointing that we need to observe that part of the love and compassion that because at the end, if I harm someone, I'm harming myself because we are not separated. So that lack of compassion for self, it is what is being projected right now. So like that, we can clear it out.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that that's what I see. It's a great cleansing energy. In fact, look at this.
Yep.
I'll try and get it into view.
Yes. Oh, the tonancy candle. I can't
Yeah,
be.
it's Our Lady of Guadalupe. Yeah. It's so when I was in Texas. Yeah, there it is.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So when I was in Texas, Kate Lumley, you know Kate the artist, right?
Yes.
She bought me this when we were walking around Texas, you see, and it means so much to me. And as I say, I'm not religious because I think religion to me is a sort of I think underneath it all, it's beautiful, but it's the way that it's put across really that I think blocks people out. Let me put it that way, really. But I think that I believe wholeheartedly in spirituality now because I feel it. But I do feel I'm more inclined now towards the feminine side because at the level of the heart, the more compassion, the more the feminine energy comes in, almost to rebalance the out of balance masculine. Because I think we've been living in a sort of a patriarchal sort of society for maybe eons and eons of time now. And it's almost as if the universe or source is saying, get in there, lady, and sort them out, you know. So I think that's what's actually happening at the moment.
Yes, I do agree with you. That's why I marked it at the beginning that the spirituality and religion are very, very different.
Yeah,
Religion, it is more constrictive and have a bunch of rules that separate you from your own self
yeah.
and through fear and controls and things like that. Because at the end, it's a great business. There are two
Oh,
best
of course,
in the world. It's like
of
religion
course.
institution. Like those are the best business
Yeah,
in the world.
yeah,
And
and the price of gold's going up as well.
but spirituality, it is very, very different. It is our innate, it's our connection to everything and to all. That is, and that we're not going to find it in any Bible or we're not going to find it in any religion because it is not about separation, it is about unification.
Yeah,
And there's a big difference between one and the other. I am not religious anymore. I divorced myself from the Catholic Church when I was 21. And after that I let it go completely. Yes, it was years of reprogramming myself or removing all the fears and
yeah.
all the shames and blames and guilts because many of us we are carrying the, like you were mentioning, we were pointing to everything because that's what a religion show us.
Yeah.
Someone's fault, never your fault. Or God saying you that God did not send us that. We created ourselves. But it's about the pointing fingers to everybody else. And that is the division, right? Really, the religion, what started all this chaos in the
Yeah.
timeline we're living right now. When
And maybe it's part of something bigger, a bigger plan. Who knows? You know, I don't go into the workings of it now, other than I've been given a set of tools where if I feel emotionally disturbed, it's an ego threat at some level, mostly unconsciously. So, in order, as Carl Jung said, you know, we need to make the unconscious conscious. And
yes,
we do that through feelings, not through thinking, really. So we don't really have to go any digging because if we start to breathe and relax, what needs to be worked on next will bubble up, right? It will cause an emotional disturbance. If we know the rules are don't do anything now, take a step back, go into the breathing, and ask your innate intelligence, please show me why I feel threatened here. And as I said before, I might have said yes when I needed to say no. You go back to that person and say, look, I said yes there. I really mean no. I'm sorry about that. So you've apologized, and then the energy starts to flow again. Right. And as you say, maybe before we make decisions now, we just need a bit more time to think and sink deep before we give people an answer. But the way the world seems to work is everybody wants an answer. Quick, 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 quick. And I've really slowed down now. My wife, she gets so frustrated with me. I'll go, just give me a few more moments to think about. Causes more trouble than anything else, but I won't be rushed by anybody anymore, Monica. You know, I really won't. I feel that the only time we need to be rushed and tense is when our physical body is in immediate danger. End of story. Other than that, everything can be thought through and sunk deeper and processed in a more honest way. So, in a way, we're being rushed by nefarious forces to do more, to get quicker, and to give answers quicker. And what they can't stand is hang on a moment. Thank you for the information. Leave it with me. I'll get back to you. And
Oh my,
that's what I've learned. And it's almost like Tai Chi where I go like that now. Thank you. Slow down. Stop,
that would make our life so different, and the world would be so different if we take those 5 seconds. If all our politicians just take those 5 seconds before they answer, and they will go back to their heart, and then they will be compassionate. I would think
Well,
that
I've got this plan whereby nobody can make a decision. Nobody in authority can make a decision unless their heart is in coherence. And how do we know? And I'm working on this. A little lapel badge, and it's either red or green, right? And if you ask them something and they answer and it's green, you can almost be assured that it's the truth. And if it's in red, don't believe a single word that they say. So, that's how I'm sort of looking at technology. And I'm being serious about this now, that there'll be a meeting of 12 individuals all in a meeting room discussing something, and ideas will be channeled forward if they're all in coherence. I think that's the way to make the world a better place. And I can see all organizations who purport to be honest might be interested in going through something like this. What do you think about that?
I love the idea, and hopefully this will be known worldwide, and it will
Yeah,
be as a rule worldwide. So like that, we actually live the dream life that we all wanted to live at the end.
yeah,
It is not because I'm harming someone else is gonna make me feel better at the end.
exactly. And in the end, in a very selfish way, it really is about how we feel.
Yeah, it
And I'm
is.
sure everybody wants to feel blissful, to feel loved, to give love. What more? What more could you possibly want? And you know yourself, don't you? When you're in love, people can say to you, "Hey, big nose," and you go, "Yes or no," and nothing comes, does it? Hey, what are you looking at me like? I thought, no. So it just almost like bounces off you, and that's why I've got a feeling for the world that we're on this sort of projection now of positivity. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, things are changing, but I do feel this underlying current of things getting better.
Well, things are changing pretty fast.
Yeah,
You're in UK, I'm over here in United States, and things
yeah,
are changing pretty fast. Things that we never imagined it is, and it is about the lack of going back to the heart.
yeah,
It is,
yeah.
and that's believe that's what is the problem in the world right now. It is, and it is the conjunction of the old world, the way how we used to do things, to the new world, how we supposed to be the new things,
Yeah.
and is the conjunction, and that's why we feel it. That is trying to integrate.
Well, they call it, don't they? Some people call this the truth vibration. Everything that you've pushed down, either through pride or fear, or ducking and diving and dishonesty, it's being washed up to the surface now. So the truth in all aspects is being revealed. Well, we can see that right across the board in every country where people are trying to hide now because they're terrified of being found out. But in a way, it's to bring everything to the surface, for it to be owned up to, and then for to go forward in a more honest and authentic way.
And declaring more the sovereignty of their own being at
Yeah.
the same time, because we've been giving away our inner freedom, our own sovereignty to anything. And right now is reclaiming that part.
I agree. I agree. And I think we're doing well. We're not infallible. I have talks with people, and something comes in and say, "No, that wasn't quite true. That, Joe, was it?" Go back, say it in a different way. I go, "Yeah, that's fair enough." Yeah. So it's not about becoming a saint. It's just about, in my view, becoming more free and more comfortable with who you are. You know, and also is to express the skills and the attributes and the you know you just what you're good at, really. Your strengths. Because I might be good at one sort of thing, but the world would have us try and be good at everything. It doesn't work like that. Work with what's naturally skillful for you and let somebody else do what they're skillful. And then in the end, like you said before. I see it all meshing together. And it's almost like, and the way I see it, there's the heart, the 12 cranial nerves. If you were a religious person, you could maybe say this was the Christ and they were the 12 disciples, right? Half feminine, half masculine. Let's get that in there, right? You know, and then that 13 joins onto another 13 and another 13 and it spreads across the globe. I sort of see it like that in the way, like Buckminster Fuller. He had all these sort of visions of these sorts of things, really.
We will get there. We're just in the transition.
We are. We're doing all right. I feel fine. I feel great. Um, I've not got it cracked. I think another thing is I always needed to know, and now I don't feel that I need to know because I feel like I'll be presented with the information when I need to know it, really.
Yes, and the point is act on that information that you receive.
Acting on information received. I agree entirely.
Yes. I really appreciate you being in Soul Talk. Do you have any words that you would like to say before we close down?
Just to say to anybody who might be struggling that there's no such thing as a hopeless case, because people consider me to be a hopeless case. But something intervened. I don't try and work out what it is. Something came in, if you like, from the invisible realms. Let's do it that way. It was a feeling, and my mind was changed in an instant. And then from that moment, I've just tried to follow this internal instructions rather than listen. It's not that I don't listen to what people are saying, but what I try and do is I take the information in and then I sort of put it into my heart. And then I ask my heart, please give me the information that I need to act upon in order to improve the quality of my life and be helpful to other people. So if you want to call that a prayer, then I say those things. And my life has been transformed beyond my wildest dreams. So what I'm saying to people is just give it a try, nothing to lose. Tap on your heart like that. Breathe nice and deeply in, nice and deeply out, and then say, hello, is there anybody in there? And see what happens next. That's what I've got to say.
That is so true. Thank you so much for that advice that I highly recommend to everybody to try it.
Yeah.
Try it and you will see how it can shift your life. Thank you everybody for being here in Soul Talk. Thank you, Dr. Joe. I really
Pleasure.
appreciate you. And hey, this help you. Share it with someone else. You might be needing to hear this information. And don't forget to give us, the information of Dr. Joe is going to be down below this interview. And don't forget to click like and write us something. Write us your questions. We will appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Monica, and thanks everybody for listening. Bye bye.